Alright, welcome back, YouTube. Um, get questions sometime on my hooks for catfishing and my setup and how I rig up my stuff for catfishing. I'm gonna try to explain it here today. We got some rainy weather and stuff going on, but most of the time when I'm catfishing with rod and reels, I'm either using circle hooks or octopus circle hooks or the Kale hook. The J hooks I use a lot of time if I'm gonna set bush lines or trot lines. But I hadn't used the J hook in years because I hadn't set no trot lines or no bush lines. But I'm gonna tell you a story about these J hooks later. But you have an inline circle hook, which is in line with the shank of the hook. Then you have an offset circle hook, which just is an offset octopus circle hook. And if you can see it, the point is bent out a little bit from the shank. And the octopus hook will be bent back at the eye. But you can also get circle hooks that are offset, that are bent, that where they're not in line with the shank of the hook. Just so many different hooks you can get now. But this is the Kale hook, and I've only been using it for probably about 3 weeks now. But this is an offset Kale hook, and the point of it is turned away from the shank, and it's offset just a little bit, but it's got the straight eye on it. But in the 3 weeks that I've been using this hook on one of the rods, I have had great hookups when it comes to hooking a catfish. Sometimes I have trouble getting it out. Yeah, I get it out of his mouth, get it loose. But now, as far as it hooking him, I have had great success with this. But if you're in the catch and release, your circle hooks are better way to go, because they mostly made to catch them in the corner of the mouth without gut hooking them down deep in the throat or anything like that. But if you're catching fish to bring home, I'm very impressed with these Kale hooks. And the J hooks also, they've been around for years, and everybody knows you can hook a fish anywhere with these J hooks. But I'm telling you, I've had a lot of good success in the short time I've been using these Kale hooks. But you can get sizes. I can't remember the size of these circle hooks, but sometimes you can get a size, and this one may say an 8/0 and that one may say an 8/0, but be from a different company or a different style, and they will have a different point, the gap to the shank distance. I don't know what the deal is with that, but it's according to who you get it from, what style hook. Sometimes the point will be further away and it can say the same alt. Both of these hooks here may be 10 alt, but one of them may have a bigger gap between the point and the shank than the other one does. That's just in the hooks. I don't know why the difference is like that, but I do know that this Kale hook is a 7/0. This is an 8/0 J hook, And I think this may be a 12-0. But anyhow, I'm going to get you directly to showing you how I rig up my line and stuff for my catfishing. But before I do, I'll tell you a little story behind these J hooks here, because this is what I'd always used for a long time. It's all I ever know. But I would set my bush lines with these, put live brim on them. And one particular oak limb that I had, it would always catch a fish when I'd set a live brim or something on it. Never let me down. Same hook right here, same size hook. I'd caught a 32-pound blue and a 40-pound flathead tied on the same limb. Big nylon line. And I went there one night and this size hook was straightened out. Set it again the next night, went there, this size hook was straightened out again. I said, I'll fix you. So I ordered these halibut hooks. I says, now I want to see you straighten this halibut hook out. I said, I'll find out what you is, how big a fish you is. I don't care if you were 65, 70 pound or what. I set that line, come back by there after, I don't know, about 2 hours of it being set with a live brim. I couldn't find my line. I looked and the whole limb was gone. And I was setting it on a limb, was probably oak limb, probably that big around, that I'd caught 40-pound catfish on. But the whole limb was missing. Then I got to thinking, wherever it's at, it's swimming around with the limb, the line, hooked to it, with a tag with my name on it. And then I also got to thinking that there was a gator that when I'd be on one side of the river, he'd be swimming down the other side of the river. I'd be going one way, he'd pass me going the other way on the other side of the river. So I thought to myself, for that thing to rip that limb off of that oak tree that I caught 40-pound catfish on, had to be that gator. But anyhow, I'm gonna get started here with doing my hook and line setup and show you my basic setup. Now, a lot of times just down there for the river fishing, no harder than what the tide is moving, I use a 1 ounce piece of egg sinker. And if you got a heavier tide, you can use a bigger sinker. It's according to how fast you want your lead to sink down. But if you're casting out and the tide is going one way and you're casting straight out, and you may want to use some heavier sinkers or some flat sinkers. But a lot of time I get out and anchor off from the hill and cast straight back behind the boat. So I use these egg sinkers a lot. I just run my egg sinker up, run the line through the egg sinker. Now if I'm going to use a circle hook, an octopus circle hook, or a kale hook, I'm going to run the line through the front side of this hook. And I'll catch it. And I'll pull I don't know, 8 or 10 inches on through the hook. And what I'll do is I'll fold it. Catch it back in my fingers, just making a loop. Now this is where I do it opposite than what a lot of other people do it. I'll just catch the line and start looping it around. And 3, 4, 5. Let's do it about 6 times. Do as many as you want. Then I'll catch that line. And I will take the end of the line and stick back up through that loop. Holding this part here. I'm holding the end of that line. And I'll catch it. This hand, and I'll pull on this line. Back part. And fish it back as it goes. And pull it tight. Now, she's tight. That fish can pull till the cows come home. That ain't coming loose. But that's how I do my snail knot. Some people will make a loop, but then come from the opposite way and go to, that's the most popular way, but I do it the opposite way. That way, you try to push down on it. This part of your line here ain't gonna loosen up. It's gonna stay tight. You pull on it that way, the tighter it gets. See, it ain't coming loose. I ain't care how hard. All they do is tighten more. You got your tie again, still sitting up there. But that's the way I do mine. I do it a little bit opposite than the way the other people do it. They'll make a loop and come from this way or back round. But always go through the end of the eye that's next the point of the hook, because that way you will get more hookups than you will just tying straight onto that eye. And if you come from the other way, it could pull the point away from the fish. If you're wanting to pull that point, then I'll give you a demonstration. Catfish has got corner of the mouth. This hook, he grabs it, pulls, it'll make that hook turn around till it catches in the corner of that fish's mouth. No matter which way he grabs it, it'll make it turn around, it catches him in the corner. See, because of the line pulling from the under part makes that hook turn and dig in. See if I can do it in this way and show you. See, the hook turns, digs in. Fish closes his mouth. The hook will get there, turn. Hook will get there, turn, and dig in. So that's why I always hook mine from the front. Okay, get the rest of this on the lid. Now I'm gonna take a buckshot piece of lead, and I'm gonna put down below that egg sinker, between the egg sinker and the hook. Clamp it onto the line. Once I get it to cooperate. But I'm not going to clamp this one tight, because I'm going to just give illustration. I'm going to be able to pull it up. I got my lid sitting over the hook. Now, if I'm gonna put a big piece of bait on there that outweighs this 1 ounce piece of lead, if you put a big piece of lead on there, 2 ounce, 3 ounce, 4 ounce, may not have to worry about it. But sometimes I'll use a smaller piece of bait, cut bait, I don't have to worry. But if you throw in a piece of bait that's heavier than your lead is, then it's gonna separate the lead from your bait and the hook, and by the time it lands in the water, you're liable to have 5 or 6 foot separation between the lead and your bait. So then you don't know where your bait's floating at. So what I do sometimes is I'll take another piece of buckshot and I'll put above the egg sinker, and that way it's going to stay close to where the bait is and hold it near the bottom where I want it at if I'm wanting it close to bottom. Now some people had asked me, I'm going to slide this up, that's why I didn't tighten it real tight. It asked me because this is pretty much considered the Carolina rig, but you don't see people a lot of time putting that piece up above there, the buckshot piece up above to hold this egg sinker in place. But it's still the Carolina rig. But now if you want to turn it into a Santee rig, all you got to do is slide this piece of lead up, slide this one up some, and that way you got a little bit more distance between the lead and your hook. And I like to use these corks that you can smash in that has the gripper on there. Then you can have it gripped, and then you have your Santee rig. So then if you want to take it off and go back to a Carolina rig, all you have to do is take it over there, slide your lead down, take your pliers, tighten your buckshot pieces back down, you're back down to a Carolina rig. But that's according to how far you want your bait to float up off the water, however you want it to do it, off of the bottom, however you want to do it. But that's my basic setup right there for catfishing. But on the some of my rods, one of my rods I use the Kale hook, but on the rod that I have that's much stiffer, that's got a lot more backbone to it, I'll put the circle hook on. But that's just my hookup, that's the way I do it, and the way I fish them. And I don't do it that way all the time, but that's my most basic way of setting up for catfish right there, is with this hook and lead setup. Carolina rig, Santee rig, simple. Anyhow, I hope that helped you out some, answered some of your questions. And then a lot of time I use 35, 40 pound test line and 7-foot rod. One of my rods is 6'6", but I got that in case I want to do some dropping down live bait straight down beside the boat, fishing straight down. Anyhow, that's my rig, that's my setup, that's how I do it.